I'm an OTR trucker for a grocery chain local to the state I live in. I drive specifically overnight because I haul refrigerated loads to several different stores, and so they need to be delivered on time and not get held up in any traffic. Each store was on average 2 to 3 hours apart, and I got paid by the hour, not paid by the mile. So if I got the deliveries done early, I would actually end up getting paid less for doing a better job. Doesn't make any sense, and a lot of the other truckers at the company joke about it too, but it is what it is. Just meant we didn't have to rush ourselves, I guess. This was a usual night, doing 3 deliveries to 3 different locations. The first 2 deliveries went well. However, I was just having one of those off nights where I was really tired and felt like the night was dragging. I was also an hour ahead of schedule, so I was debating whether to push through this last delivery and head home early, or to stop and take a break, basically get paid for an hour of napping, then deliver the last one at its scheduled time. As I was deciding, I was en route to the next location, driving through a very dense forested section of the road. It was empty, just like every night I drove on it. But all of a sudden, I saw a guy right in the middle of the road up ahead. I noticed him soon enough to not need to slam on my brakes, but I was going pretty fast, so the stop wasn't too smooth either. The man in the road looked really strange, not hurt or like a hitchhiker, or really showed any reason for why he was out here in the middle of a barren road. Even after I stopped, the guy didn't move. He just stayed standing there. After a second, I realized I was crazy for even stopping, and had a bad feeling about it. So probably just 10 seconds after stopping, I put it back in drive and passed him in the other lane. I kept checking my mirrors as I got further away, and the guy still didn't seem to have moved. A minute further down the road, I passed by a car that was parked on the shoulder. I made the connection that it had to have belonged to that weird guy in the road. But what didn't make much sense was that all of the doors were open. Like all 4 doors, fully wide open. It seemed all too weird to be just some guy stranded. And at least to me, it kind of felt like a trap. Although I didn't have anything else to really go off of. Maybe he had opened all the doors to get people's attention. Whatever it was, it confused the hell out of me, and I knew I had no chance of figuring out any reason for it, so I stopped thinking much of it a few minutes after passing by. After that very strange encounter, I ended up making up my mind that I was going to take a break at wherever the next gas station or rest stop was along the route. Better to be safe and not let myself get too sleepy. And I'd be getting paid for it anyway, so it felt like a no-brainer. About 10 miles down the road, I pulled into a gas station. I had been along this route many times, but never stopped at this one before, because it was older, always had the building closed at night, and just seemed less lively. It never seemed to have any other truckers stopping there. This night was no different. The gas station part was empty, and the large semi-truck parking area behind it was empty too. I pulled into a spot, did one last glance around this almost abandoned feeling gas station, then set an alarm for 40 minutes and laid back in my seat. I woke up what felt like a while later, but my alarm was going off, so I guess it really was only 40 minutes later. My eyes just barely opened enough for me to reach over and turn off the alarm. Though, when my eyes fully opened, I immediately got chills. There was a car parked directly in front of my truck. Its headlights were on, and all the doors were wide open. It was that same car from the side of the road. I started swiveling my head all around, looking all over the parking lot and checking my mirrors. But it was dead silent. There was nothing in the parking lot and nothing in my mirrors. I sat there frozen, scared because clearly something should be wrong, but it was almost like somehow nothing was, which almost made it even more unnerving. Where did the people from this car go? And what the hell was up with all the doors being open? After a minute, I put the truck in drive, backed away, and left the gas station. I thought about it for the last hour of the drive to the last location, and still had no theories for what that was. It happened just 2 months ago from when I'm writing this, and I still can't think of anything. Hopefully, someone else might be able to give me some sort of idea as to what that was. As far as I've seen over these last 2 months, neither the guy in the road or the car have shown up on any of my routes. I work for a moving company that primarily does cross-country, large-scale moves. I don't do any of the actual lifting, though. I'm just the truck driver. This move was from Boston to a smaller city in California, pretty much as far of a drive as possible. The nice part about long drives like this was that I could really schedule out the drive however I wanted. I just had to be at the destination on time. For this move, most of the East Coast part of the drive was fine. The western half of the states is where it gets really boring and empty. Long stretches of road with bigger gaps between refill stations and rest stops. I think it was around 9:30 when I had to use the restroom and pulled off at a small rest stop along the highway. There was no one else there, in the car parking or truck parking. I parked, reorganized some things in the cab, then got out. Outside, it was very quiet. No one was even passing by on the road. It was just a dead area on the highway. I was pretty used to it, though. I walked into the building and used the bathroom. But while in there, I heard something outside. Not like a nature sound, but it sounded like a heavy thud, almost metallic. A minute later, I walked out and immediately saw no one was there. It was still just my truck in the parking lot. It was also just as quiet as it was when I'd walked in. I did a quick walk around to the truck to make sure everything was good, but not seeing anything, I just got back in and continued with the drive. I don't know what I thought I'd heard, but I assumed it was nothing. I drove for another few hours before my tank was starting to run low, and I ended up at a gas station to fill up. While it was pumping, I started to feel the sleepiness kicking in, and thought about just staying there for the night. It was already around midnight, and I'd driven more than enough for the day. Although I'm not entirely sure why, but I chose not to stay there, and to instead go to the next rest stop. It was another half hour down the highway. During those 30 minutes, I got much more sleepy and tired, and was really looking forward to just getting there and passing out. It was very late, and no other vehicles were driving anymore. Felt like I was completely alone on the road. Finally, I saw the rest stop and pulled in. This rest area was separated between the car and truck parking sections. I could see through the trees that there were some cars on the other side, but the truck area was completely empty. I didn't mind being alone. I parked, turned on the AC, and got in the small sleeper section of the cab to lay down for the night. What I'd say was likely 2 hours later into the night, I woke up to a thump. It was loud, and I could actually feel the thump vibrating through the body of the truck. I sat up and fumbled into the front seat, thinking someone might be trying to break in or something. But when I checked around, I didn't see anyone. After a second, I wondered if something in the back might have just fallen over somehow. And I'm not even kidding when I say that the moment I thought that, I heard another thump behind me. This time, I was sure it was from inside the trailer. I got out and walked around the truck to the latches at the back. The tamper clip was still sealed, and it was all locked up like it should have been. It came through my mind that maybe I was going crazy, but something else in me told me that this was not something to ignore. I took off the clip, unlocked the doors, and opened them. Right when I did, I heard something move inside. Some boxes or stuff shift around. I felt a rush of adrenaline, like I knew this was way worse than I initially thought. I pulled myself up and stepped into the trailer. It was dark, with boxes and wrapped up furniture densely packed through pretty much the whole thing. Stuff had definitely shifted around, but I couldn't tell if it was just from driving or not. I walked around a couple boxes and tried to get a view all the way down to the end. Again, it was nearly pitch black. However, I saw a head peering over the furniture, looking right at me. He didn't move, like he was trying to watch me without getting noticed. I almost stumbled backward, genuinely horrified. I jumped out of the trailer and closed the door, locking it from the outside. I took a few steps back to catch my breath, and just stood there staring at the doors for a minute, trying to process what I saw. I then took out my phone and called the police. Obviously, this was very creepy, especially to have experienced at a rest stop along a very isolated highway, but everything afterward made it even more disturbing. The man inside the trailer didn't seem to move or try to escape while I waited 35 minutes for an officer. Maybe he didn't know I saw him, but the officers did eventually go in there and drag him out. They found that the guy wasn't just hitching a ride. He had a stash of food and water, as well as a gun. It looked like he was not only prepared for being in the trailer for the multi-day travel, but was also preparing to ambush the movers, or more likely the family at the new house. Nobody really has any idea when he got inside the trailer, or even why he was trying to do this. The family said they had never seen the guy before. Thankfully, he was taken in and put away before anything worse could happen. Really makes me think of what could have gone down if I didn't find him, or if I had decided to try and confront him myself after I found him. I was driving on a several-day delivery route through the Midwest. I've made this same drive hundreds of times before, and nothing was off about the first part of the night. I was on a very long, unoccupied road. Not necessarily a highway, because my deliveries go to smaller cities and towns, so I can't take the main interstates the whole way. Most of the road was empty plains with long fields of nothing for as far as you could see. It was on this road, literally in the middle of nowhere, that very suddenly I felt something off with the truck. The road noise got really loud, and it began shaking. I immediately pulled off to the side and shut the engine off. It was so sudden I didn't even have much time to think about what it even could have been. I sat there for a moment, hoping this wasn't anything too bad. Then I got out. It was dead quiet outside. The fields of tall grass on either side of the road were blowing in the wind, but aside from that, there was nothing. There weren't even any lights visible in the distance either. But I quickly could see that one of the tires was flat. It was actually actively losing air, slowly flattening. I was so focused on that one tire though, It took me another couple minutes to realize that it wasn't the only one. Of the 18 wheels, 6 were flat. I'd never even heard of something like this happening. It was almost what I'd expect from running over a spike strip or something, because of how quickly it happened, and that it did damage to so many tires. Should go without saying that I didn't have any way to fix this on my own, so I pretty quickly got my phone out and called for roadside assistance. Stuff like this is really infuriating as a trucker, because it's just a big waste of time that I don't get paid for. Of course, being so far out in the country, assistance was about 2 hours away, and that was just the estimate they gave me. There was a pretty good chance it'd be twice as long. I took the opportunity to yell out my frustrations into the nothingness, which I'm very glad no one was around to hear. Then I got back into the cab and started waiting. 30 minutes went by, and the road stayed just as quiet. Not a single car came through. I was on my phone, scrolling and checking emails and whatever, when I saw a light show up in the side mirror. I just noticed it in the corner of my eye, but I didn't actually glance up at it, assuming the car was going to pass by in a few seconds. About a minute later, though, I suddenly looked up from my phone, realizing the car never passed me. But in my mirror, it was empty. The light was gone. I even opened my door and looked back at the road. There was nowhere to turn around on this single-lane road, and no reason to either. So how did a car just show up, then disappear before passing me? I wasn't scared by it, but more just thought it was kind of freaky. Because I was stranded on a desolate road. I rubbed my eyes and grabbed an energy drink from behind the seat, then got out to get some fresh air. I walked around to the side of the truck that was along the grassy field, leaning up against it and just waiting some more. I was only out there for 10 minutes, trying to keep my eyes open, when I heard the grass move. Not like wind blowing it around like it had been all night, but like something moving in the grass. It triggered something in my head that got me to stand up straight and look wide-eyed at the field, but I didn't see anything. And then, 15 seconds later, a voice suddenly called out from the other side of the truck. Scared the hell out of me. There was a guy on the road at the back of the trailer, looking around the truck at me and asking if I was alright. I was immediately put off by the fact I did not see a car behind him, so how was he out here? He started to walk up to me. The man looked mid-40s, with a gray beard, and very, very tired. Something about his look was just unsettling and creepy. He asked me about the breakdown, and if I was good. I said I was fine and that help should be here in any minute, lying in hopes the guy would leave. Even if he had good intentions, there was nothing he could do anyway. But weirdly, he kept asking questions and wouldn't leave. I also noticed his eyes kept darting back and forth, looking at me, then at the field next to us. It was then that I felt very threatened and uneasy, and knew I needed to get back inside the truck. I keep a concealed carry between my driver and passenger seat, so being inside was much safer in case I needed to protect myself. I started walking around the truck, and the guy followed me. Felt like he was trying to keep me from getting in. However, once I was around to the driver's side and got into the driver's seat, I didn't see him. He had stopped talking and wasn't at my door. It was suddenly dead quiet again. I looked out both mirrors and he wasn't along the side of the truck, and again with no cars around, that means the only place he could have gone was into the field of grass. The more I thought about it, I got really freaked out and unholstered my piece, keeping it in my hand for the next 2 hours. Finally, when assistance came, we got everything situated and I was eventually able to get out of there. I actually talked to the maintenance guy about the weird encounter, and he said he also had something really weird happen to him on this road as well. He said just a few months ago, he had gotten a similar call to mine from a young man driving on this road and saying that all of a sudden his tires popped. It took the maintenance guy about an hour and a half to get there, and when he did, he found the car on the shoulder with all 4 tires flat, but the caller was nowhere to be seen. He was just gone. Apparently, he drove up and down the road looking for him, but eventually left it to the police to figure it out. Makes what I experienced much more than just being creepy though, thinking about what that guy's true intentions were, and if he was even alone out there. That night could have gone a whole lot differently.